Welcome to the Sports Council.
Oh my goodness. So first year would be, to say it shortly, would be drinking through a fire hose.
The council is now in session.
With a personality shaped by being an athlete and a background in mainstream sports media, I found that the stories I was most interested in telling were the ones often overlooked, the ones that might not otherwise be told, the ones that show the intangible and not just the highlight reel. The Sports Council is about highlighting the great, the good, the unique, and everything in between in the Pacific Northwest sports world. I'm Jamie Council. Thanks for joining me.
You're listening to the Sports Council on 1340 ESPN, the Tri-Cities leader in sports. The council is now in session.
So I'm Kyle Cairns, and I'm the athletic director at Tri-Cities Prep and the head football coach.
How did you get to be at Tri-Cities Prep?
So my family and I are from Goldendale, and we were looking for an opportunity to bring our son over to, experience a little bit more things than what Goldendale has to offer. And we noticed that this job was had opened. I had been looking for a head coaching job for a long time. AD's been something career-wise that I've wanted to do for a long time, so it just seemed like a perfect fit for us. Yeah.
And now that you've been in the role, now in your second year as this AD/head coach, that's a lot to take on. Dan Whitsitt made it look easy, but he had also been doing it for over 2 decades, almost 3 decades.
Right, yeah.
So what was that transition like?
Oh my goodness. So first year would be, to say it shortly, would be drinking through a fire hose was the first year. But once you can kind of anticipate some of the challenges that you're going to have, and every school is going to have its own unique challenges, being able to identify those early in the summertime and take care of those has helped me a lot more this year than, experiencing it for the first time last year.
Yeah, and then what made you want to become a coach?
Yeah, so football's always been, my first love, regardless of school I've been at. That's been a priority for me in my life and what I'm looking to do. So really, just it's something that I've always aspired to work with kids. I think it's the best avenue to teach life skills to players. It's not necessarily would we love to win them all? Absolutely, but at the end of the day, it just gives you a really good vessel, a good venue to teach young men to become men. And it's a great platform for that. So that was the main reason why.
And what would you say is your coaching style?
I would say firm but fair. I'm big on holding everybody accountable, including myself. I'll be the first one to take ownership when something doesn't go right, but also making sure that I'm holding my captains and my players up to a high standard expectation, not just necessarily on the field on Friday nights, but, at practice, off the field. And one of the nice things about being athletic director is I get to see them all day long and different things that they do to kind of, use this opportunity, again, just to form it's almost like student formation of just forming these young men to be good citizens later on. So, yeah.
And I want to go back to the football later, but first, I think it's a really good picture that you painted drinking water through a fire hose as far as being the athletic director and head football coach right away. So I imagine it can be tough. Can you give me an example of things that only a person in your shoes would have to deal with?
Oh, for sure. My first year, there was a moment where, cross country needed to get to a game or to a meet over in Highland for districts. So I ended up driving the bus to that game and missing out on practice, which most head coaches wouldn't have to do. There's been moments where, we're hosting a volleyball game the same night we have practice. So I got to make sure I wrap things up, sometimes miss the conditioning piece and lean on my assistants to close out practice sometimes to take care of some of those athletic director jobs for sure.
And it might make you kind of structure the way you coach a little different, where I think you take a look at some of the best coaches and their assistants know how to run ship, but it kind of forces you to do that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And yes, been forced to, but man, I've been blessed with great assistants and so much of that is the ability to trust your assistants too. If I didn't trust my assistants, maybe this wouldn't even be doable, but I got great assistants that it doesn't matter if I'm there or not, I know the same product's going to show up. So, yeah.
Talk a little bit about the team this year.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Small school football, you get waves and cycles. This year we're blessed to have some really good upperclassmen in the offensive line, defensive line, and a few of our backers. But we're really young with our athletes. But it's just been special because we've been able to move the ball really well, running the ball this year, mostly in part because of our offensive line. We have a senior quarterback this year that didn't play quarterback the year before, but ultimately approached me about making that switch. So just that dynamic of adjusting your scheme to kind of fit what kind of players you do have. And I always feel like we're going to have great players, and our assistants and coaches do a great job of developing athletes to where we need to be on Friday night. So we have 4 captains, 3 of which the players voted on, and then the coaches pick one as well to form make our 4 team captains. So it ranges from, we have 3 seniors on that list, Ethan Seeliger being one of them. Again, thinking about, we just had senior night the other night, and some of the things I shared about Ethan is his dedication to the weight room and how he is positively contagious, where he gets other underclassmen especially to buy into our weight room, which is a big process or a big part of our program. You have Ethan Hedgepeth, who, unfortunately he tore his MCL or ACL and won't be able to play the rest of the year, but he's the definition of our mantra this year, which is confidence is silent. He just talks with his pads. He's just calm, cool, collective, but he has a good heartbeat or pulse of what's going on in our program. Then we have Ulysses Estrada. He plays wingback for us and defensive back. He is literally the heart and soul. He brings the energy. I think he's maybe missed one practice this year, and you could tell when he was gone because you could hear crickets at practice. It's like, all right, guys, Ulysses isn't here. Let's bring it up. So he does a great job of bringing that emotion, that passion to our program. And then finally, our standout junior, Owen Jenke, he rotates in at tight end but plays will backer for us. His ability to, from where he started, so last year, he had a couple of concussions during the season, wasn't able to play as much as we would have liked him to, or he would have liked to, but took a really big leadership in our off-season program. So came to everything in the off-season, went to team camp, and ended up being one of the more vocal leaders at our team camp, which we felt was deserving of giving him that opportunity to be a team captain for us this year.
And being at a small school, you're saying those names, and those names are very familiar of the baseball team that just won state last year. Absolutely. So it's kind of funny when you see the same people leading multiple sports, and you only get that more so, not only get that, but you more so get that at a small school.
Absolutely, yeah. And the unique part is, too, so those are the front runners, but I think all of our programs across the board, regardless if it's football, basketball, you name it, do a really good job of taking those senior and your junior captains and it just funneling its way down, siphoning through the rest of the program. So when it's somebody else's turn to step up, they show up in all 3 sports across the board, whether they're a senior, junior, sophomore, you name it. They're getting ready to step into those roles when they get there.
And I think it's really amazing because you have such small numbers. The developing those players is so much more important because you have smaller amounts to draw from. And you grew up in Goldendale. Tri-Cities isn't a small area; it's a lot bigger of an area. But you're still a 2B school here.
Right.
What's that like for you, just being in a bigger area, but not perhaps a bigger school?
It's unique. My coaches and I talk about it all the time of, yes, it's small school in a big city. One of the challenges, I think, is that, yes, we are a small school, but they get to live big city life, and they have lots of options and choices that very easily could pull them away and be distracted from what's going on. Life in Goldendale, the only show in town is football on Friday night. There's not games going on in Chiawana or Richland or Pasco, you name it. It was the only show. So I think that's, again, hats off to our players for keeping a lot of what could be distractions aside and just focusing on what's important for our programs to be successful.
Very good team this year, and it's really tough because Riverview has been such a tough team and a really hard game, a really tough pill to swallow, losing on a field goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Hats off to those guys. They, you see, how they broadcast their players. They are committed to the weight room. Hats off to Coach Welch. He does a great job of getting them prepared for Friday nights, and it's obvious that the weight room is a big part of their program. I feel the same thing about us. A big difference from last year to this year. I think they came to our house and beat us. I can't remember the score, but I think it was 48-6 or something like that, running clock going into the fourth. And I think we took a lot of what they did and put that into our own program, again, to make our EWAC football conference a whole lot more competitive, and I think that's what we got. It wasn't the result we wanted. Myself, I know I'm still losing sleep over it, but ultimately at the end of the day, we got to make plays, and Riverview made those plays down the stretch. So yeah, I
think that you bring up a really good point, seeing where you guys were last year, your first year kind of thrown into the fire a bit. What adjustments did you make, whether it be you as a coach or the team? Because I feel like people wrote you off, and this year you're showing, no, you are a good team. It's black and white.
Yeah, a lot of that I put on myself. Last year I took this job, I want to say it was early July. So we didn't really have an opportunity to, start our weightlifting program back in January like we did this year. So weight room was a huge part of it. Me not knowing the kids, I think my first time meeting our players or even our seniors was on a Zoom call on my way driving from Goldendale over here and talking to them about what we need to do to even be ready for, our first practice in July, which is late. It's late to the party, So offensively, we went with a structure we thought would be, would keep us competitive, have a little bit of misdirection, things like that, but allow us to be successful with not having, a big senior class with only the 4 seniors last year and not a lot of size or, not knowing the kind of kids I had. But now being able to be in the seat I'm in now as the AD, I get to see these guys playing basketball and see them in baseball and things like that, and just having a better understanding of what kind of schemes might be more beneficial to their skill sets. And I think as a staff, we've collectively done a really nice job of just giving them a better opportunity to be successful. But I would say the weight room's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, and then taking a look at them, noticing or saying that you've gotten to know them as people, who are the characters on the team?
Ooh, characters. Character, how so? Because we got lots of characters, and every kid is so unique.
We'll start off with who is the funniest?
The funniest. Oh, boy. So I would say, in terms of my favorite funny guy, would be Max Zoller. He's currently a junior for us this year. Last year, my favorite memory of him, he got so used to me getting after him about all the little things all the time that he was walking across the parking lot, and I'm like, "Hey, Max, how's your day going?" And he jumps about 10 feet and he thinks he's in trouble, but he's upbeat and he likes to kid around and he knows what to say. He always knows what my message is and he lives by my message, but he knows what to say to know that it's going to get a little rise out of me, and it always gives me a good laugh. So I'd say Max is probably our funny guy.
And you make sure to give it back to him, it sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a two-way street. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're listening to Jamie Council on the Sports Council.
Who is somebody that maybe surprises you the most? And by surprise, I'll leave that part up to you.
Surprised. So somebody I've been extremely proud of this year is our sophomore quarterback this year. So Jarrett Garza is his name. Right now, at the beginning of the summer, he took on a pretty big role. Caleb Scherfy does a lot with baseball in the summertime. So Jarrett Garza ended up having to be our summertime quarterback and went to camp and did a lot of the stuff for us and competed with some really big schools like Napa Vine and Kalama and Raymond South Bend, some of those, top 10 programs in the state, and did a really good job in adversity and went through some growing curves or growing spurts in that process. And I've just been so impressed with how he's handled himself of getting all those reps, not necessarily winning the job at the end of the day, but not letting that change his work ethic. He still shows up every single morning at 6:45 to come lift in the morning. His work ethic is contagious. He ends up, 2 weeks ago, so midway through the season, earning, a nickel or a starting spot on the defensive side of the ball, and then a rotationary spot on offense as a receiver. So, just because I think it's just a good message of just because you didn't get necessarily the position that you really want to play, his work ethic has put him in a spot to still earn meaningful time on Friday nights, and that's a big credit to his personality. So I'd say that would be my biggest bright spot.
Yeah, somebody once said that you're always interviewing for that next position, and even though he thought he was interviewing for quarterback, it was actually what he's now seeing success on in other facets.
Yeah, absolutely.
And who is a guy that's maybe the smartest in the classroom?
Night and day. Oh boy, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying that. Can I give a tie?
Yes.
So
I don't want to create any rifts in the locker room.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I would say it's between Ethan Hedgepeth, our senior left guard defensive tackle that's hurt for the rest of the year, and then Caleb Sherfy, our starting quarterback, are both pretty bright individuals. They would probably have my number if it came to some Jeopardy on a Saturday. Yeah.
What about a kid that has maybe something cool going on outside of school or football? Just, something where you're like, wait, a high school kid is doing that? Or are there any kind of cool stories?
I don't necessarily. I mean, I think the perspective of private school sometimes is that we, yes, we're super dedicated to our sports, but I think sometimes it's thought that we don't have like a work ethic, that we're not like normal kids or farm town kids. I don't necessarily have one particular kid, but we do have a lot of players who go and work farm in the summertime, and it's hard to get them back to, to some of the things that I would love them to be at. But I think that, I don't know if that's necessarily cool, but I think it's cool to me that sometimes we get this appearance that we don't have that nitty-gritty factor to us.
When in fact it's probably opposite, because you have players that are farm boys.
Yeah, we do have some farm kids. So, I think that's kind of the cool thing that I've learned of, because again, being from Goldendale, you have this thought process of what a private school is like, and it's the exact opposite of what you'd think.
Yeah. I've talked to a lot of 1A schools that have a lot of things to say about private schools.
Yep, and I've been on the other side of the table, so I get where it's coming, but it's a whole different world sitting in the seat for sure.
That's a funny take where you have this perception. Were there any perceptions that you had to overcome stepping into this role, thinking, what am I getting myself into?
Absolutely, yeah. So I remember, coming in for my interview and, hey, where's the weight room? I'm sure this thing looks great, and I walk in, there's a lot of single-use machines, and I'm sure Coach Whitsitt used it to max capacity like he does. I'm big on free weights and things like that, which again, it's just kind of my style and spacing and stuff like that. And I just remember being like, man, that doesn't seem, for a private school that has all this money, this doesn't really seem state of the art, or, just some of the things, baseball field looks great. But there's other things that's like, this could probably be better than what I expected. I think funds are the biggest surprise. And I think credit to our school, I think we do a good job of giving out scholarships to those in need, and, not turning away a kid because they can't afford to be here. Which ends up, pushing money towards that as opposed to things that could be spiced up, which I think we're making the right choice in giving kids scholarships and things like that. So I'd say that's been the biggest surprise for me, is that it's not just a bunch of spoiled kids. It's again, a lot of people who have to wear many hats to make things work to keep a place like this going.
Yeah, this isn't the private schools that you think of in Seattle. I'm sure that there's some over on the west side.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
And that was really interesting for me, actually, to learn more behind the curtain of a private school of, you take a look at the baseball field, but what went into that? And the kids are fundraising, or you're seeing people come together in the community to make it happen. It's not, Tri-Cities Prep, here's a quarter out of our bank. It's no big deal, know?
No, a lot of people invested into that from just the prep community that made that happen. So
Riverview, it is what it is. It happened, but now you have to look ahead to Burbank.
Yeah. So again, another big challenge for us. Last year they really put on us too. I think, I'm still losing sleep over that one as well. 89-40. I remember sitting at my assistant's house and we're watching the news, still trying to recover that same night. And I remember the reporter saying it like it was yesterday. Yep, you saw that right. It's not a basketball score, So that one still lives with me a little bit, So again, credit to Burbank and their staff doing a nice job of keeping those boys competitive. I think it's going to be a great game Friday night. Two competitive teams looking to snag that last, the number 2 seed out of the EWAC. So, good luck to them, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to compete.
And what do you think is going to be the biggest keys of the game?
For us, and I think this is more about us, when we've lost competitive games, it usually comes down to turnovers for us. If we do a nice job of securing the ball, keeping possession, doing the things that we like to do, run the ball, be balanced, ultimately I feel like that puts us in a good spot to win against anybody, not necessarily just Burbank, but any opponent that we would play. I feel like if we can, stay on the positive end of the turnover battle, keeping the ball off the ground, gives us an opportunity to beat most teams.
And Burbank, I feel like, prides themselves on being a very ground and pound team. What are your plans to maybe limit them?
Oh, you said it. Number 24 does a really nice job.
Kinsey.
Yeah, Kinsey does a great job of, I don't want to say carrying that offense, but they trust their best player and they put the ball in the best player's hands. And again, it's just, I think first down, second down, it's an important deal to make sure that it puts them, you get them in situations where they can't lean on Kinsey to pick up a 3rd and 9 or whatever. Trying to get them off script is huge. If you can't, then it's going to be a long night. So kind of dictating those early downs to give you an opportunity to be successful or get a chance on 3rd down to make them do something they don't want to do is ideally the plan. A lot of teams have probably had the same thought and didn't execute it, but yeah, so we'll see, we'll see what we can do on Friday.
What is the significance of this game to the Jaguars?
It's huge. The Riverview game was kind of a step in the right direction. It's one of the first times I've seen our players since I've been here in really any sport, have so much emotion after losing a game. And, it just shows how much our players care. Riverview and Burbank over the last, it's been a while where they've had our number for quite some time. I think it'd be really big for our program, to move past that and be able to compete with all three, both of those programs and be in the same name and not just the doormat, or the wannabes or whatever of just being able to be a competitive football program. So, I think Friday's a huge opportunity for us to continue to move down the path where we'd like to go. I think it gives us a better opportunity to make it to state because obviously whoever loses this game will end up going to Goldendale likely. Which is a tough venue in itself, as we experienced last year. But, and then no sweat to, whoever wins, they'll likely end up playing Cleom. Cleom's a good ball club, too. We played them earlier in the year, and they're getting hot at the right moment. So either way, it's going to be a tough road to get to the state playoffs, but I don't think either ourselves or Burbank are sweating. I think we're just going to continue to compete and put ourselves in good spots. So, yeah.
Friday at 7 at Burbank.
Yep, absolutely. Looking forward to it.